So I think that's a perfect way to kind of transition into our kind of last closing segment, which is that kind of new age versus old age conservatism here in Canada. As I mentioned earlier, we've kind of seen the same divide that was present in this debate between the kind of, I struggle to get terms because the term alt right has been bogarted by the Nazis, but it's really the what seems classical to me now, but the neocon position of David Frum versus the kind of new neo conservative or new right or alt right or whatever you want to call it on Steve Bannon's side, and
Hmm.
that kind of divide has emerged in Canada as well with Andrew Scheer of the CPC kind of sticking with the more traditional establishment neocon position, and now Maxime Bernier kind of emerging as a blatantly populist icon with his new People's Party of Canada. So, as I understand it, you've been a longtime conservative, Adam. How do you feel about this schism?
Yeah, it makes me sad. It really does. I could be wrong, but it seems to me like we're better off together. The Conservative Party of Canada kind of did that in the past by bringing a couple of parties that had splintered, and I think that's where we did some of our best work. I'm not a party member, but I'm a voter, and I've voted Conservative in the federal on the federal level, and I voted for Stephen Harper, and I thought Stephen Harper did a great job, and I think he did that because he was able to govern and to by conservative principles while keeping a lid on some of the more extreme aspects of the party, which really didn't need to be brought up, like abortion, for example. And I don't know. You'll have to educate me on some of the stances of the People's Party of Canada, but I don't know that this will be helpful in trying to defeat Justin Trudeau a year from now, a year and a bit from now. Um, so I'm worried. What?
Skeptical.
Yeah.
So those are some reasonable criticisms. There are definitely some popular criticisms. Uh, First, I like to point out to all these kind of anyone who's a kind of establishment conservative who says, I like the Stephen Harper era. I like to point out that if we look back to the kind of reform era, although which is the last time we saw this conservative schism, uh, despite the conservatives never gaining power during that period, the liberals had to hop over to the right to kind of to continue to capitalize on their votes. Much like nowadays, we've seen the liberals go from center left further left. During that age, the new party on the right pulled the whole conversation to the right. So we saw prime ministers like Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien, and they governed arguably from a even further right position than Stephen Harper did.
Mm.
Just and that is in large part to the how the reform and later the Canadian Alliance changed the kind of the way the conversation was being had. So I definitely I it's no surprise I criticize Justin Trudeau a lot on this channel, and I'm not a big fan of him. I think he's taking Canada in a poor direction at a turbulent time in international politics. I don't see Andrew Scheer as a real solution to that. I think he'll do less dumb stuff, but I don't think he'll really guide our country to in a way that will kind of recover from this Trudeau era and remain kind of powerful in our own right and successful at least for our citizens. Whereas I think Maxime Bernier offers a lot of policies that are very different from Justin Trudeau's and will really benefit the country in a lot of ways. And we can get more into depth about that if you're curious.
Yeah, I'm
I'd
very
be glad
curious,
to.
actually. Yeah.
But I feel that generally speaking, as the Liberals have jumped to the left and kind of failed over there, the the sheer conservatives have jumped to the left to kind of to want to catch all of the disenfranchised Liberal voters, as opposed to trying to fire up their own base and provide real right-wing policy solutions. And my co-host Andrew will disagree with me, and will continue to fervently debate this, because, like you, he's still he's skeptical of the People's Party of Canada and supportive of the CPC. But the way I see it, Bernier is really the only actually right-wing party. Now we have like kind of the NDP and the Liberals on the left, the Conservatives in the center, and Maxime Bernier on the right. And Scheer has said this himself in an interview with The Sun, like last week. He said that he's looking to govern from a centrist position with people of all sorts of different opinions. And of course, it's a nice sentiment. It's just, I think we need larger change than that. I think we need some more fiscal tightening. I think we need some change in our economic policy to remain competitive with Trump's America. I think we need to make big changes to get pipelines to Tidewater. I think we need, like, there are a number of issues which I don't think the Conservatives are willing to take a strong enough stance on.
And so, what are the issues or that so far that you've seen Andrew Scheer sort of fail on, in your opinion?
So, the Scheer Conservatives have released very little of their platform, whereas Maxime Bernier's, or at least most of what the platform will be come election time, is already released on their website. But again and again, we've seen the Conservatives kind of offer these medium solutions. The first one that comes to mind is this whole immigration crisis that we've been having. Despite Michelle Rempel grilling the Trudeau Liberals for months and building her YouTube following all on this issue, the solution they offer is to give a path to citizenship to most of the 40,000 illegal immigrants that have entered our country over the last 2 years, and these illegal immigrants that are already too taxing on provinces like Quebec and Ontario to sustainably manage. These illegal immigrants that have posed a serious problem over the last few months, and will continue to prove a serious problem due to backstops and backlogs in the processing of them. So that's the kind of medium, not as controversial kind of solution that the CPC are offering, whereas the People's Party are willing to kind of step out and take a more controversial stance and be more willing to deport illegal immigrants, mm-hmm. and slim down on the amount of immigrants that the country takes in on a yearly basis.
Yeah, and I definitely recall, like, this is why Bernier was departed the party, the Conservative Party, because of his views on a lot of things like Canadian identity and things like that. Yeah. Let me ask you though, do you think that in a country like ours, a party that takes too hard of a stance on some of these things can get enough votes to win a majority? Even if, sorry, go ahead.
So there's a kind of number of answers to that. I would consider the People's Party a success, even if they just shift the conversation to the right and force the Conservatives to be more conservative and stuff like this. That in my view is a success, even especially considering Bernier wasn't able to do that from inside of the party. Since the leadership convention, he tried to air his views on important topics such as supply management, which was a huge holdup in the NAFTA negotiations, as well as many other international trade deals that we've been negotiating over the last few years. And these kind of criticisms on radical multiculturalism. There's a couple other topics that he was kind of outspoken on, but instead Andrew Scheer relegated him to the back bench. He encouraged him to be silent. He said that Maxime doesn't speak for the party. Like, he really pushed him to the outskirts of the party. So if Maxime is able to leave the party and force changes within it, I think that would be a big success, especially if it results in the Conservative Party offering policy that is acceptable to right-wing Canadians and to the future of our country.
It will be interesting to see whether the average Canadian in a left-leaning country can, if a Maxime Bernier can get enough of those people on board, because let's face it, there's a certain amount of a base, and then but to really make a dent, you'll have to bring some of these people on board. And a Canadian conservative is very different than a conservative in other parts of the world.
Yeah. So I think the real interesting thing about Maxime's party is not only is it a right wing party, but it does have some other policies that are kind of interesting to more kind of even left wing voters, but I would say more kind of reform oriented voters. So even people who want to see kind of huge changes in the like anti-establishment kind of voters, like this will be the party for you. It's the new party. It's not from the kind of typical liberal conservative establishment, and policies like ending corporate welfare really would stand out to even left-wing voters who don't support that kind of thing. Like that's been a popular NDP kind of position for a long time. So I think this kind of party can appeal to people not only from the Conservative Party but from the Liberal Party, from the NDP party, like those kind of traditional Chrétien, Martin era liberals will respect the kind of policies that are being offered by Maxime Bernier because they're similar policies.
Hmm.
A lot of his policies, especially on immigration, that's trying to be marketed as super controversial, he's not advocating massive changes. He wants to scale it back to the Harper eras of immigration, which is just 50,000 less people a year compared to current levels, whereas Justin Trudeau is planning to increase it. Who knows how much, based off of the new kind of UN compact that the Canada signed on to. Like he's not saying let's just shut the doors. Like he's just saying let's scale it back a bit and let people integrate and stuff like this. So although though he'll be marketed as a super inflammatory character, I don't think he truly is. I think he's offering some pretty reasonable policies across the board.
Do you worry that, so if we assume this new order of there being, so from the left, sort of NDP, then liberals, and now on the right, the conservatives, and then the PPC, do you worry about Bernier sort of having a lot of those more extremist people that could be again associated with his movement and tarnish his image, sort of gravitate more towards that side?
Well, again, like extremists are going to vote for someone. Like I don't think that's a problem. I like they shouldn't be involved with the party. They shouldn't have control over how things are done and stuff like this. But like, what do they
So,
not to get to vote?
no, no,
As
of
long as
course.
he's not pandering to them and like
Yeah,
and
but the
being
media,
racist.
I can already see what the media is going to do, right? Like just like we talked about with everything else,
You should.
left-leaning media will zero in on those people and their views
Have you
and
seen the
try to.
CBC interview with him?
No, I haven't. I should take a look.
It's absolute slander.
Hmm.
Like it's a 12-minute interview, and the first half of it she doesn't even talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
For some like just tip of the iceberg. The title of the interview is like Bernier on the rebel media and libertarian politics, not like new leader of the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier. Like they don't
Mm-hmm.
show the logo of the party once. They say the name of the party once, maybe twice. It starts with this huge segment about how he's actually connected to the Koch brothers and this international populist movement and how he's like totally begotten to international billionaires. And the only connection that she has is that two of his staffers worked for the Fraser Institute, which is like the biggest right wing think tank in Canada. That gets some of its funding from the Atlas Network, which gets some of its funding from
Mm-hmm.
the Koch brothers, and they worked there like a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
And she's accusing them of being like still beholden to these kind of entities. It's just absolutely absurd. But I think
And that's to be expected, right?
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
pretty
it's
absurd.
CBC, but the again, the same kind of things that plague the NDP with some of these unpalatable characters that the right likes to bring up, of an MP that doesn't want to wear a poppy or like this and that. The media will do the same to a party that's further on the right, like a PPC. And is there something that Bernier can do differently? Like, for example, Jagmeet Singh wasn't able to deal with that at all, or hasn't been able to deal with that at all.
Well, Jagmeet Singh is irrelevant, and that's going to play really well for both the PPC and the Liberals. Uh, but yeah, that's definitely important, and especially in the candidates, and properly vetting people is definitely a major concern. I know for a fact that it's a major concern in the party, and just not only getting to know the people, but also scrubbing through their social media and stuff for any of these unpalatable or controversial or unacceptable views. And obviously you have to kind of toe the line with a certain amount of free speech, but like it's politics. Like you have to you have to have a good image at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
it's going to be difficult because it's a huge rush. Like they're trying to set up all 338 EDAs before the new year, and then after the new year they're going to have to find 338 candidates, and they're going to have to make sure all 338 candidates are clean, and they're going to have to do all the campaigning and raise a bunch of money all before October 21st of next year, which is less than a year away. So it's definitely a gargantuan task, and it's important to not let essential things like vetting fall through the cracks.
Mm-hmm. It'll be very interesting, and now we're gonna see, is more choice better? We're sort of going in the opposite direction of the States, right? Two-party system, and here we're growing our parties, right? They're multiplying, so it'll be interesting for sure.
Well, I really wouldn't be surprised if this schism is temporary, just like the last time.
Mm.
Like it only lasted what 2 or 3 election cycles before Stephen Harper brought the party back together. So I
Mm-hmm.
could see that happening depending on the results even after this election. Like
Mm-hmm.
it would be pretty absurd. But what if Justin Trudeau wins a slim majority or a minority government, but then Bernier wins opposition? Now all of a sudden it's easy to reunite the party under Bernier or something like this. I wouldn't be surprised. Like if the Conservatives want to throw out Andrew Scheer after a poor showing in this election, like I could see the party realigning,
Mm-hmm.
or even in a slightly more distant future. But I would be surprised if this was a kind of permanent split.
Mm. Well, anything's possible.
Yeah, you never know. So that's why you just gotta keep trying and work for what you believe in.
Yeah, no, and it definitely, I hope it'll make more people pay attention, right? That's what Trump has done. That's what this debate with Bannon, like all these things are bringing these things closer to people, are getting more people to pay attention. And hopefully that's a good thing,
Yeah,
because the last thing we want is, continued decreases in turnout, voter turnout, and, people just saying, screw it, my vote doesn't count and whatever. And that's where some of the worst stuff happens, and politicians take advantage.
yeah. And the more people that are paying attention, the more people to watch my show. So
That's right.
even better. So I think this is a good place to cut off because we've been going on for a bit over an hour now. So everyone make sure and follow Adam's pages. It's all right over there, right below Adam's head, below the fold on YouTube and on Facebook. And be sure to tune in to True North News again tomorrow. I'll be doing another interview with Rance Derrick, and a pretty popular Canadian YouTuber. Looking forward to chatting with him, and thank you so much, Derek, for giving us that shout out on your last video. But until then, thanks for coming on to the show, Adam. Hopefully we'll have you again sometime soon, and stay informed, friends.
Thanks for having me, Daniel.